Okay, hi. Now we're joined by Nicole Schwartz. So, hello, Nicole.
Hey everyone, I'm glad you guys are still going. I'm kind of shocked. It's been a very long time, so
We're
I'm
empty
excited. How
shells.
far?
Yeah,
We're beer
You're at
powered.
empty shells.
power.
So, Nicole, welcome to Bacon One.
Yes.
It would be very nice of you if you wouldn't mind telling us a bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
So I do a lot of things, and I'm a very weird person. So I'll give you the high-level summary.
Yeah.
I am now a person working at GitLab in the secure team, and
Cool.
I just moved to Canada, and I ended up here because way long time ago, I convinced my mom that we wanted to go to Vegas for DEF CON when I wasn't even 18 yet. And then it all kind of went from there. So that's like the really short summary of my life. And otherwise, on the side, I work on the Diana Initiative, which happens during HackerCon Summer Camp Week. And I also help with the Internet of Dongs. I've got an OSINT project that I'm trying to start and work on for that. And I generally herd cats. So if there's any cat herding to be done, I end up volunteering myself into it.
Oh my God, she's like a way better looking female version of me. That's crazy. I volunteer at Diana Initiative. DEF CON was how I got started. Oh my God, we're like sisters.
We're the same person.
Oh! Okay.
So
it's going to be interesting to have my mom back because
So
Ren
you
and I are
moved
getting
back to
married at
Canada?
DEF CON. So.
Were you originally Canadian then?
No,
No.
Ren's Canadian and refuses to move to the States. So I had to leave the States.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Interesting. So you mentioned you working for GitLab. Does that mean you involved in development, or are you researching? What is it you do there?
So I'm actually doing product management for the secure testing suite. So ideally, for anybody who doesn't know what GitLab is, it's software for software developers to write software, which is only slightly recursive. And so while people are writing their software, I would really like them to write it better with less security holes and less bugs, because high quality code is awesome and everyone wants to be proud of their code. So as of right now, in our paid tier, and we're bringing it down into our free tier because there's a free version.
Awesome.
We have SAST, DAST, dependency scanning, container scanning, and license compliance. And it lets you know, oh, there's CVEs for this, or you've got, the possibility of a SQL injection here. And a lot of times that happens way later in the process. And so you don't know what developer necessarily introduced the bad thing into your code. Whereas since we run the scans for free and we don't charge like per scan or anything, we're relying on open source tools, you can run it every single time you add code. So you know exactly when it was introduced and by whom. So that's kind of my mission, as I've always been in software dev, and now I'm trying to make software dev a little bit better for everyone.
Wow. Just
DevSecOps.
so impactful, because I know that it was GitLabs that introduced the idea of scanning the repositories, the repos for software vulnerability, right? And
we
libraries.
did start with that about a bit over a year ago with Gymnasium. We purchased that.
Yeah.
And then Microsoft started throwing money at the problem and acquiring people. So GitHub also does that now, but we did it first.
Awesome. That's such a powerful way to impact security at like really a developer friendly level, probably a lot more constructive than posting your homework to Stack Overflow. I've heard that isn't a pleasant experience. So at the software development level, then, is there obviously you have to pay attention to what's happening in terms of disclosure, right? What are some of the sort of inputs that you guys use? Is it like a threat intelligence feed? Is it feedback from the developer community? Like, how do you identify something bad in quotations?
So as of right now, a majority of our scanners are looking for rather simplistic things. Is this applicable to cross-site scripting or whatever? Yeah. And then they're also checking against a CVE list, and we're using NVM and a couple other sources, which are all listed. If you go to our public vulnerability database project, you can see exactly what sources we're aggregating from, and we do take community contributions. And so our vulnerability database, anyone can go look at it. Anyone can see what we've got in there. Anyone could add something. Obviously, we need to approve it and review it before it gets accepted, but we do take community contributions. At this point, nobody in the community has done it. We've had, obviously some internal employees add some stuff, but we're hoping over time more people will add it, especially because fingers crossed, we're discussing becoming a CNA so that we can accept vulnerabilities related to projects hosted at GitLab.
That's awesome. So, I mean, you've got all these tooling and that there. So, what are sort of some of the challenges that you see teams, or I think teams face today, especially around developing and security?
So the talk that I've been giving for this whole past year probably summarizes down to 2 points. We don't educate developers well about security. So even if they want to care about it, we don't give them the tools to understand what they can do to change anything. And then the second part is security teams in a lot of cases, and if you've followed InfoSec Sherpa on Twitter, she shouts about this a lot. We don't have empathy for the rest of the business units and what they're expected to do. And so I think if we can get some empathy for the teams that are having to do security and then get them the education they need. Nobody wants to be the person who gets the company breached. They just usually don't have the tools to understand, how do I stop it? Like I may understand SQL injection is bad, but what is SQL injection? Yeah, I know it's bad, but what is it? And how did I introduce it? And how do I fix it?
And it's interesting because, that comes back, and then the easiest route that devs frequently take is to add filters, soon realizing that filters don't work at scale and parameterized input is the way to go, but then you have to rewrite the entire application. That's a very simplistic view, and I'm using a lot of words that I don't quite understand, but I just wanted to show off a little bit because I'm a big fan. Okay.
So flipping that around, it's all very well saying, hey, you got to reach out to teams, and that's only going to work if those teams are willing to engage. What advice can you give when you find that teams are just not interested for whatever reason? You just effectively meet a brick wall. How do you break that wall down? How do you get them invested and engaged and working with the security teams?
I think, unfortunately, if you've gotten somewhere where there's already a bad relationship, you need to start really slow. And I know that drives some people crazy, but just starting with coming over with bagels, donuts, fruit trays, whatever, some food, and just asking, how exactly does software development work in your department? Just tell me about what your normal workflow is, and understanding how they work as a starting point, and then bribing them with food, because everyone likes food, at least most people like food, and just starting to get friendly so that they feel like they can, tell you about things. So don't start trying to force anything on them. Just find out exactly how they work and what problems they experience, and find out if some of the security controls you have in place are places that they are getting caught up, and see if that gives you any wins. So for example, maybe right now they're trying to log into a bunch of different places and they have to remember all of those passwords, and then they're told we can't write the passwords down, yada, yada, yada. Well, what if, as a security company, you'd love to have everyone using like LastPass or Okta or, 1Password or something anyway. So can you start being like, oh, well, what if we get the company on board with doing this? This would help you have less logins in a day. And just find things where they have a pain point that you can make more secure and better for them. Because once they start seeing that you're working with them, you can start being like, oh, hey, and the other teams are starting to do a DAST scan in their dev environment. I see that you already have a test server up and you already run some automated regression. Can I run some DAST scans? I won't make you do anything with the results to start. I just want to see where we are and compare that to production.
But are you talking then about a big investment in things like SonarQube and check marks, or?
There are tons of free scanners out there. They're not necessarily as fully featured or robust, but why start with the expensive solution until you've got buy-in?
That's totally cool. Yeah, that's great advice.
So personal plug here, because I am an OWASP chapter leader. Go look at OWASP. There are so many tools out there, and some of the tools they're bringing out now are fantastic. OWASP
Yeah, OWASP
dependency
Zap
stack,
is great.
Zap. There's Defect Dojo that we even looked at. That looks absolutely amazing. And then the likes of yourselves. I mean, you got the community edition. Do you want to maybe give a bit more about that?
So our community edition is free for everyone to use, and we try and rely on a lot of open source tools, which is why I was saying earlier that a lot of our security scans are going to come down into the community edition, because they are based on some of the OWASP tools and some of the other open source security scanning tools that are out there. And so now that we've kind of worked out the bugs and we've got it working and we think it can scale, there's no reason why we can't take all the open source tools that we have and are using and put that into community edition. It just doesn't make sense to not do that. And so the great thing, this is the only company I've worked at where people actually come up to me when I'm working a booth at an event and say, like, I love your product, you're amazing. Every other place I've worked at, usually they come up and they're like, either who are you, or, you know, oh, I have this problem and no one's responded to me. But
Yeah.
generally the community, because it's open source, they're like, oh, I love you and you listen. You know, sometimes they get into a kerfluffle with us, but we try to listen.
Okay. Sorry, Ian,
Really
we're going to have to wrap.
Oh, okay.
The reason is that we've got a little bit of a timing blip on our schedule. So we've got Nicole on at 10 to 4 till 10 past 4, but we've got Hacker Fantastic on at 4.
Okay. Yeah.
So apologies for that. But Nicole, thank you very much for your insights into application security. It's a subject that's very close to certainly Sean and my own heart. It's what we do a lot of at our place of work. We really appreciate you giving us your time, and thank you very much.
Thank you, and hopefully
Brilliant,
we get those last few donations.
Yes.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Nicole.